Hey guys, did you guys see the interview with Darion on Little Black Book 91? If not, pause this video and go watch that interview, okay? Go watch it right now. He also did an interview with Kai and Alexia, okay? But you need to watch the Darion one first. But if you want a little context, watch the Kai and Alexia, because Darion, I'm absolutely shocked, right? Like, Darion definitely spilled the tea. And let me just get right into it. Did you guys watch the video yet? Pause this, go and watch it. I don't want you guys to say I spoiled it for you, okay? Basically, Darion said that this whole relationship with Alexia is fake. So the story is, right, Alexia, if you watch her interview with Little Black Book 91, right, she gives a little bit of a background of her story, right? And basically she played basketball overseas in Romania, right? And she made it seem like, allegedly, her and Darion were on and off because she was in another country overseas. So he had his thing going on, she had her thing going on, right? Turns out that they were never in a relationship. That the first time Darion saw her since she was in college, I believe, was a month before Put a Ring on It. Basically, they faked the whole thing to get attention because they wanted to be on Love and Hip Hop. But they couldn't. They tried to go through Young Jock, but I guess Young Jock wasn't really feeling them like that, so that didn't work out. So they decided to go Put a Ring on It to get a little bit of fame and a little bit hype, get a little bit of hype behind their name. So the whole thing is fake. Now, I'm going to say allegedly, right? I don't know. I don't know if Darion is a reliable source, right? But I'm just going with my gut instincts, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, right? But once you start to put everything together, like if you listen to the interview Little Black Book 91 did with Alexia, right? And then you watch this interview with Darion saying the whole thing is fake. To me, it kind of makes sense, right? Because she's overseas playing basketball in Romania. Now, I know that people do long distance relationships. It's not for me. Maybe a short period of time, but not long term. I mean, she's been playing overseas since after college to now, and she's 34 years old. So that is like almost 10 years, if not 10 years and more. It is a little bit unrealistic for me to picture Darion of all people, right? You see how Darion moves. It is a little bit skeptical for me to imagine that Darion is going to have a long distance relationship with someone in Romania, right? And I know, like, okay, Darion isn't famous, but when he was younger, he did have a little bit of fame, right? And I guess he is more well-known locally. Why would he be in a relationship with someone in Romania for most of the time? Now, I'm not saying that couldn't be the case, but I just find it highly unrealistic because Darion comes off as a womanizer, right? Like, so if this whole thing is fake, right, their plan was he said, right, his plan was to go on the show, go on multiple dates with somebody because he saw Michael from the first season when he went on a bunch of dates with, I think her name was Whitney, and that got a lot of attention. So he was studying the show, right? So he's like, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to do the same thing because that's going to be scandalous, right? Well, sleeping with her wasn't part of the plan, right? So he couldn't even keep it in his pants, right, to go with the plan to get a little bit of fame. He has absolutely no discipline, right? Like, you would think, okay, if you're gonna do this fake shit, you're not going to get a bit of fame, right? So you can hopefully get a paycheck later on. You're not going to F up the situation by sleeping with the date, because then that kind of messes everything up, right? So it's like, if he can't even do that, how am I going to believe that he's going to be faithful to someone in Romania? On top of that, he has had, I don't know how many kids, but multiple kids during that relationship. I mean, the whole thing just doesn't really make sense to me, to be honest. And even in the Little Black Book's interview with Alexia, she was very vague. Because Kojo, his name is Kojo, he kept asking, so the 14 years, describe how you guys ended up together for 14 years on and off. How was that relationship like? And I don't know, the way she was talking, I'm gonna be honest with you, was a little bit vague, right? It was a little bit vague. She wasn't giving hardcore details. She was like, oh, well, the thing you have to understand, I was young back then, and he was doing his thing, and I was doing my thing. And it just didn't make sense. And I don't know, Kojo should have asked her. I mean, but I guess, like, you're interviewing someone, you assume that they're telling the truth. You assume at least the relationship is real. One thing, in hindsight, I would have asked her, so, did Darion go to Romania? I don't know. For some reason, I don't see Darion going to Romania. I could be wrong, but I just don't see him going to Romania, right? He should have asked, like, okay, how many times did you see each other within these 14 years, right? But I understand when you're doing the interview, you're doing it from a place where you're assuming this is a legit relationship. Had he known that there were that this relationship may have not been a legit one, I'm pretty sure he would have asked different questions. Even with his interview with Kai alluded to the relationship not being what it was, right? But then again, who's Kai's source? Kai's source is Darion. So the thing is, like, if you don't believe Darion, then you're not going to believe this whole situation. However, I did, mild investigation, right? And I went on Alexia's Instagram, and there are no pictures of her and Darion before January of this year, right? Because that's Darion's claim, that they were together only a month before they got on the show, or I guess the producers reached back to them asking, okay, do you want to be on the show? So they weren't really together at all. They weren't really seeing each other in person at all, right? And if I look on her Instagram, it does support this. Like, I find it hard to believe you're with someone for 14 years, right? And the earliest picture you have with that person is from January of this year. And I scrolled and scrolled and scrolled and scrolled and scrolled and scrolled all the way back to 1963. Okay, not that far back, but I scrolled and I didn't see any pictures. There's a bunch of pictures of her with other men, other women, a picture of her and T.I., well, not her and T.I., but a picture of T.I. and Tiny. I don't know what that's about. But I see majority of her pictures are with other people. But yet you have no picture with your boyfriend for 14 years. That's a little suspicious to me. And I guess you could say, oh, well, he's a celebrity, and I guess, he wants to keep a bit of privacy. I mean, that maybe would have made sense, but it kind of doesn't, because if you look on her Instagram, she maybe has 1 or 2 or maybe 3 pictures of her and Darion kind of out in public right after January. But then she also has a lot of images of her and Darion on the show, like clips from the actual show. But there's no real pictures of them hanging out before the show. There's absolutely not. There's not even like okay, I understand maybe you didn't post the picture in the past because you wanted to keep it private. But there's no, once you got on the show, like, wouldn't you post some sort of throwback pic? Like, oh, here is us when we went to Disneyland. Here is us when we went to Hawaii. Or like here's me and him in Romania. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't know what is in Romania, but like, here we are in Romania doing whatever. Like, there's no pictures, nothing before January, nothing. That is a little bit weird. Like, if you're with someone 3 years and you don't post a picture, fine. But 14 years, and I understand because, no, I want to say I understand. I could understand, because I'm not on social media like that, right? There are some people, they're not on social media like that. They don't post pictures of themselves, let alone with them and their partner. But if you go on her Instagram, it's Alexia Adams, I believe 24. Just Google it. You'll see. You scroll and scroll. She took a bunch of pictures with everybody, but you don't have your boyfriend. So that made me side-eye her again. Like, her interview wasn't really informative. And then on top of that, her Instagram, right? And speaking of Kai, right? I don't know if you guys hear the thunder. But speaking of Kai, I kind of feel bad, Not that anybody watches me or anybody cares what I have to say. But I was kind of hard on Kai. I was. But if this whole relationship was fake, Kai didn't really do anything wrong. I mean, I wonder at what point she found out that it wasn't legit, right? Like, at what point did Darion tell her? And I don't know, I wouldn't be surprised if Darion said, hey, this relationship isn't real, so we can sleep together, kind of situation. And we know that the confessionals are filmed after, so we don't know how things are edited or how things are chopped up. So I'm gonna apologize to Kai. Maybe I'm wrong and I'm moving too soon with this, but just something in my gut doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right. And just even how Alexia was acting, right, in that interview just seemed completely off to me, right? And I know people forgive when people cheat and everything, but I don't know, she was just a little too detached. Even that scene when Darion was saying sorry to her on the show, like, she was wiping his tears away, and I'm looking at his face and there's no real tear even coming out of his eye. Like, he said that he was acting the whole time, that he wanted to be an actor, and it makes sense because he couldn't even open his eyes. Maybe that's his sort of tell. People have the things that they do with their body language when they're lying. Maybe his thing is like he can't open his eyes, right? Like, I don't know, but just something doesn't seem right. And if you watch that interview, if you want to believe him or not, I feel like he is very open. Right? He could be acting in that interview, who knows? But he is very open, and he makes himself look terrible. To be fair, I don't think he realizes how bad he's making himself look in the interview. So, I don't know. Go watch the interview. Really and truly, go watch the interview. And I'm sorry, I'm just believing, I'm believing it. I can't believe the whole thing was fake. I almost feel sort of, I don't know, as someone, I just started to do reviews, right? And as someone that reviews the show, I mean, I do kind of feel some type of way because I wasted so much energy talking about them and everything. And just to know that the whole thing was fake, it's like, I don't know, I feel like the fool, the joke was on me. Now, I mean, one thing I will say, if you watch that interview, I mean, I don't really take anything back that I said about Darion. I think Darion is a narcissist or has narcissistic behavior. He's a good looking guy, I guess, and I can see how maybe he could be charming for 2.5 seconds, but I definitely don't think he's a good guy at all, so I'm not really gonna take anything back on that, right? But you know, the stuff I said about Kai, even Alexia, if this whole thing was fake, it's pretty much irrelevant. And I even thought, you know, watching the show, I'm like, why aren't they on Love and Hip Hop? Like, they seem more suited for Love and Hip Hop. So it's kind of funny that he's saying that that was the original plan and it didn't work out. Maybe in an ideal situation, one thing would lead to another. So, like, Darion's reason for kind of exposing everything was because he basically wanted Alexia to kind of, I think his plan was to be like, okay, Alexia, you're gonna forgive me, and then I'm gonna propose to you, and we're gonna get back together, and it's gonna get everybody talking, and then we're gonna get some sort of spin-off. I don't know how that would have worked. I mean, I think at least maybe they could have made their way onto Love and Hip Hop, right? But Alexia, he says, I'm going to say allegedly because we don't know for sure. He said that Alexia was like, well, I still have interviews to do. I'm not ready yet for us to get back together because I feel like from his perspective, allegedly, she was like, okay, maybe I can still milk this victim thing, right? I can do a couple of interviews being like, oh, Darion, he did me wrong, he broke my heart. And then once that well sort of dried up, then they can get back together. But his thinking is that, you know, the public, they have like an attention span of 2.5 seconds. They're going to forget about us if you keep dragging it on. So it's better that we get back together now to keep things going. And if you're talking strategically and everything, I feel like she was more right in this situation, because I feel like, okay, the reunion was just this Saturday, so I feel like she definitely could have done a couple of more episodes. More interviews. He could have done more interviews himself. They could have kept this going just a little bit longer, maybe 2 more weeks, right? And then when things were starting to die down, they could have got back together, and then that would have got more hype again. But he was getting more impatient about it, and I feel like the reason he was getting more impatient about it, if he's telling the truth, is because he was looking like the bad guy. Reasonably so, he definitely deserved it, but he was looking really bad because all his exes and baby mamas were coming out, exposing him, saying that they took care of him, that they paid for him, and all that crap. Kai is coming out, exposing him. Alexia is doing interviews about how he broke her heart. So he's looking like the asshole. So, of course, because I think he has narcissistic tendencies, he doesn't want to stay in that space so long. So, of course, he would want to quote-unquote get back together with Alexia and propose to her so the public can kind of be on his side again. I mean, if anything, I don't think that would have been the case. I think the public would be more screaming at Alexia, being like, oh my god, you're so dumb, why would you do this? Kind of situation. But he wanted to flip things over. Maybe he wanted Alexia to get some of that hate or get some of that attention. Who knows? Another thing, that when Alexia was doing her interview with Little Black Book 91, aka Kojo, while she was doing the interview, Darion called her, right? And Kojo was like, why are you still talking to this guy? He should be blocked. He publicly embarrassed you, right? You said you had suspicions that he may have been cheating on you all this time, and you're talking to him. And she was kind of like, oh, well, we know each other for so long, and, you know, we had stuff we need to talk about, you know, stuff. She was very vague, right? And I don't know, when you just put all the pieces of the puzzles together, like, I know that when someone cheats on you, like, I know some people, they do get back together with that person, right? So it's not that that's necessarily far-fetched, right? But I don't know, when I just put everything together, something doesn't make sense. And you know the saying, if it doesn't make sense, it's probably not true. So in my gut, I feel like Darion is telling the truth and this whole thing was fake. And if this was fake, put a ring on it, people, production. When you bring these people on the show, you need to do your research. You know, it should be as if like you're marrying somebody that's migrating from another country, right? Where you have to show evidence that you guys are actually a real couple, and you're not just marrying this person to get them in the country. Interesting fact, Darion, you know, did something like this for somebody else, right? Darion, he's such a character. Like, you have to be able to prove that you guys were really together. Like, production really needs to look at photographs, text message, something, because I don't know, it, especially if it gets exposed, I mean, it hurts the credibility of the show, because next season people are gonna be like, are these even real couples? And I understand, we all understand to this point that reality television is fake to a certain degree, right? We're not naive at this point. Reality television has been around for like 2 decades at this point. But I don't know, it can be completely fake, right? Especially a relationship show. Especially oh my god, especially a show on Oprah's network. Like, Oprah, this is making you look bad, right? This is making you look bad. And I don't know, I'm just really disappointed if this is true. I really am. That's all I gotta say. You know, I mean, people were even saying the first season, people were accusing it of being fake, right? But I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna believe it, whatever. But now that this comes out, like, who knows? Is Sean and LaRonda real? Is Eric and Jessica real? Like, we don't even know anymore. Like, if they're not even gonna do their if they're not even gonna make sure, then who knows? It will be interesting to see how Alexia responds. Alexia, I'm gonna need you to post some pictures of you and him in Romania or something. And Kai, oh my god, Kai is vindicated at this point, right? And if this isn't real, Alexia looks pretty bad for picking on Kai at this point. And Darion even said that Kai was an exotic dancer and she didn't want anybody to know this, but Jessica exposed this, right? So they're all coming after this girl, and if Darion and Alexia weren't even in a relationship in the first place, it's like, But I don't know, even with Kai, even with all of them, I do think they all went on the show to get a bit of attention, right? To get a bit of fame. So, I mean, that's what comes with it, right? If you want a little attention, you want a bit of fame, everybody is going to be in your business and they're going to want to know your tea. So, if you're not ready for that, probably don't go on reality television. Anyways, guys, that's everything. See ya.